So welcome back to a new week of Liberty Free to Be. And there's no getting away from the fact that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. That whether you like it or not, it's been around for the last couple of weeks. We've been bombarded with lots of things of commercialisation of love. And what better way to explore this conversation, particularly when midlife divorce between the ages of 40 and 49 is on the increase. I thought it would be a great time to get an expert in to talk about dating, relationships in midlife. What better way and better person to talk to than one of the UK's leading experts, Kate Taylor. So welcome, Kate. Finally, we've got together again.
I'm really excited about this, really excited.
We have got a lot to talk about. But before we get started, so people can get a feel of who you are, Kate, how do you describe yourself in 3 words and why?
I'm an enthusiastic, scatty writer. I love the enthusiasm. The scattiness I felt would calm down through my midlife, but it hasn't. But I do find being with you very calming. So I'm expecting to end the podcast very zen, but normally quite scatty.
So there's no pressure there then, Kate. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Valentine's Day? Because obviously it's everywhere at the moment, whether it's all about self-love or whether it's about dating and relationships. How do you feel about Valentine's Day before we get started?
I've got mixed feelings. I've got mixed feelings about it. I think it's really good if you can claim it and make it something really positive to you. I think it's a wonderful thing. So you could use it to celebrate yourself, or you could do it with your friends. You could make it just like a day of love to everyone in your life. I think we need to get away from the feeling that we can sometimes have. It can feel like a competition for women, like who is the most cherished and adored. Because I remember when I lived and worked in London, going home on the tube on Valentine's Day could be quite traumatic, because there are always like 5 women there with these huge bouquets of flowers that arrive from them at work, and then me and the other flowerless women looking at ourselves. Oh, I've done it all wrong again this year, clearly. So I think if you can embrace it for yourself and not wait to get that validation from someone else, I think it can be a really happy, positive day.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And I so relate to that. I never, forget being at school when all my friends were getting Valentine's Day cards put in their
Yeah.
lockers and I would be the one that didn't. And bless them, my mum would always send me one. So,
I'm the mum who sends them now, but yeah.
so, as I said in the introduction, the divorce rate is one of the highest for the age group 40 to 49. So dating later in life and starting again is prevalent, isn't it? Why is that increased, do you think?
We're seeing divorce go up in all the kind of over 40s categories. So 60 and 70, I think the over 60s, there's a big boom in divorce for them as well. I think when you, as you get older, I think you know what's making you happy, you know what's not making you happy. And I think you put up with things less as you get older, because you know what works for you. And probably as someone in your group of friends gets divorced, that opens up conversation about divorce amongst the friends. You might see their transformation after the divorce and think that it's been a really positive thing for them. That might change how you feel about it. It might become something that you start to think about more, and it can have that kind of knock-on effect. Because I think when you're in a committed relationship and you think about the possibility of divorce, when you're happy and with the right person, obviously it's terrible, it's heartbreaking, it's a horrific thing. But if you went through some problems and one of your friends flourished after their divorce, you might start thinking, if I feel like I've got my friend back, they hadn't been themselves in that relationship, have I changed in my relationship?
So I can completely relate to that. But, I got divorced and my friends were ahead of me and I could see the changes that they were going through. And, I suppose it's that snowball effect, isn't it, of thinking, well, OK, I'm watching them almost like change in front of you, and it makes you see what's possible for you, doesn't it? But what I'd like to talk about now is how that you and I both met our husbands online. I met Mark 12 years ago on Match.com. You met your husband online as well, didn't you?
I did. I've met both my husbands online. I'm on my second husband now, But I met both of them doing online dating. So the first time was when I was 20, 28, 29, living in London, a sex writer for GQ magazine, and online dating had just hit our shores over here. And I did it for fun, but it was so old fashioned then that you had to, if unless you had a scanner for your photo at home, which I didn't, you had to post a photograph of yourself to the offices at Match.com for them to scan it in. And it was the days of dial-up Wi-Fi, so you would see someone would say, I'm sending you my photo now, and you would wait for it to kind of load, going down sort of like, oh, lovely hair, nice eyes, the nose, oh no, the mouth, the teeth. Yeah, so I did that, met my first husband. We were married for 10 years. And then when I was 40, we divorced. And when I was ready to date again, I went back online. And that's how I met my second husband.
And it's interesting because I think people fall into two camps. You know, you and I have had really positive experiences from it, but also I talk to lots of single friends that wouldn't touch it and don't and are scared of online dating.
Mm-hmm.
How do we convince people, particularly in midlife, that it can be a really safe, positive experience? Where do they even start?
I can understand why people would be frightened, because we all know what it's like. If the negative things seem to be much more powerful and they stick with you more than us raving about it, saying, I've met two lovely husbands doing online dating and you with your lovely man. And then, but someone else, they hear something in a newspaper or something about someone lost money or was conned. That will be the story that they remember. But I think what I always found when I was doing online dating, and tell me if you found this as well, is that your instincts work the same when you're doing online dating. As long as you listen to them, then I don't think don't go into online dating feeling that you have to be so open-minded, everyone's wonderful, you're going to give everyone a fair shot. Because if someone writes to you and their first message mentions sex or something, and for you think that's slightly sleazy or not, you might really embrace that. But if someone strikes you as a bit off initially, I always found, and I always tell people, that those are the things to listen to. And you have to use online dating as a way to meet people. That's all it is. It's a place where you can meet people. So meet people. Don't fall in love with pen pals, or don't correspond with people that just want to send you messages forever, because they're usually the people that aren't representing themselves truthfully, or aren't saying what their situation really is. So when you're using it to screen people out and to meet people quickly, it's a really positive thing to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because yes, I did meet Mark, and I hadn't been on it for very long, but there were a couple of occasions where I really had to trust my gut instinct to think this is not right for me. And one of them, I was actually arranging to meet somebody in Manchester for lunch, and I'd been talking to him for a couple of weeks. And I actually had a phone call with him the night before I was meant to meet him. And when you're on the phone and you're talking to somebody, you think he sounds so much older than his
Yeah.
picture looks. And so I asked him to send me a photo of where he was right now. And he sent me a photograph basically in a white vest, completely bald and nothing like the photograph that he'd sent me. So that was a big no-no, but you do have to treat your gut instinct, don't you?
And if he had used that photo, if that was his online dating photo, he would have met someone who loved him how he looked exactly, and would have been really happy with him turning up for the first date. It's that misrepresentation. It's just, I read a book called Have Him at Hello, where a woman spoke to over 2,000 men who'd had a first date with a woman and then never wanted a second date. And she did what you would really want to do yourself, and ring them up and go, why don't you want to see her again? What happened on that first date? Because you're obviously attracted. If you get a first date with someone, they fancy you. So what happened on that date? And the main thing that put people off was unmet expectations. So you had an expectation of how he was going to look. In reality, he was, the bald man with the vest. If you were looking for a bald man in a vest, absolutely happy days. It's that. So I think that's a really important thing to remember when you're doing your own online dating photos, is make sure they represent the you that's going to be turning up to your date. And never worry about it, because remember, you're only trying to meet one person. You don't have to have a photo that appeals to the entire world. In fact, you'd be too busy. It'll be hectic. You wouldn't better cope. So, one person, like, narrow them down before they start talking to you.
And I suppose it's difficult though, isn't it? Because usually if it's later dating, then we're kind of starting to go either perimenopause or the menopause. So we're not
Yeah.
only contending with navigating being single life, trying to meet somebody else again, but that's at the same time as juggling all the other things that are going on with the menopause, with low dipping confidence, not feeling great about their bodies.
Yeah.
There's often quite a big disconnect. So on top of all that, that's quite hard to navigate, isn't it? So how do you even start?
I would honestly, I'm so glad that I was married when I went into menopause. I'm in surgical menopause because I had a hysterectomy nearly 2 years ago, and it's brutal. It is a white knuckle ride. And I was talking to someone recently who's just going into this process, and what she's finding the hardest thing to cope with is the anxiety and the panic attacks. Because when the menopause hit me after my operation, one of the first things that happened was I got panic attacks driving my car, and I haven't driven my car since because I had a panic attack on the M3, and I'm terrified. But she was finding that when she's confident, she has always felt really good about herself, but suddenly the idea of meeting people in public in a new place, it's bringing up all that panic. And there are so many things to juggle. Like if you're on a date with someone and you want to represent yourself as kind of the bright, bubbly, funny person that you've always been, but then you get the brain fog, the memory loss, you get halfway through a story and can't remember where it was going. I think to try and keep your self-confidence going through the menopause on a first date, I think that's one of the most challenging things about it. But that's why I think it's really important that we do things like this, and we talk to each other and we talk to other women and say, if you're getting the brain fog and the anxiety and the panic attacks, go and go and talk to a doctor about it and see if you can get the help that you need now early, because you don't have to wait for hot flushes and night sweats, because there are so many things. And just, I mean, HRT, if you can take it, or the natural supplements, will just help you feel more normal, because as you say, dating is stressful enough.
And I can so relate to that on a completely different subject, but I really suffer with anxiety around driving. That's never been around before, and it suddenly just happened, and it's really it's annoying. It's quite frankly, it's really annoying. But yeah, a different subject. But I can imagine navigating dating on top of that's really difficult. So, what advice could you give to women that, let's say they've started talking to somebody online and they are feeling more comfortable about the thought of meeting, but then how do they make it so that they feel safe and in control of that when they actually go and arrange somewhere to meet? Where do they meet? Restaurants, bars? It's difficult to choose, isn't it?
I would probably avoid restaurants and bars for those first dates. I know why they're popular. I know why drinks and coffee are a really popular first date, because they're cheap, they're accessible. There are lots of places you can do it, and you can be in and out in half an hour, because obviously the point of that first date is to see if you've got the chemistry in person. But what I find is always better, especially if you're anxious, is going to do something on a date. So go to, I mean, art galleries and museums are a cliche, but they're a really good thing to do on a date, because it gives you things outside you to talk about. So you can demonstrate your personality and your likes and dislikes, but you're not in that interview situation where you're kind of staring. And often as well, men seem to open up better when you're side by side. So it would have been for me, like, when I was driving, my husband was in the car, we would have brilliant chats. Now, it's a psychological thing, apparently. Men find it easier to open up like that because it's less threatening. Whereas this situation for a man, they kind of feel that they're being really put on the spot or interrogated. So art galleries, museums, and put things in your profile. When you're writing your profile, remember, you're writing it as a potential partner. So don't list all your solitary hobbies, which was really hard for me, because my ideal weekend, I wouldn't speak to anyone. I would read books, I would research things on the internet, get into a Google spirals, have a dinner for one, watch telly, like a happy little hermit. But when you're writing your profile, you have to be things, let someone imagine where they fit into your life. So when you've put those on your profile, hopefully someone will suggest doing one of those with you. So it could be, I'd never like to say going for a walk through woodland or anything like that for a first date, but it could be exploring National Trust gardens. It could be live music, something like that you can do together. But there's no pressure to be the entertainment. Let the entertainment be outside. It's easier.
Where did
Easier.
you go on your first date?
He was really good. He was really good. So when I did online dating again when I was 40, I'd been working for Match.com as their dating expert for, by then it was probably about 7 years. So I knew how to do online dating. I'd seen the research. I knew what to do. I knew the profile. So I was getting a lot of responses. But there are a lot of men saying, shall we meet halfway? Or do you fancy coming to this restaurant near my house? And I was thinking, oh, I don't know. But Pete was absolutely brilliant. I was secretly on a diet, so I was kind of putting him off meeting for a while until I sort of got back down to 10 stone. So I was saying, I'm so busy this weekend, I'm so sorry. But he Googled where I lived, found the name of a pub that had a funny name. It's called the Saucy Kettle. It turned out to be, it's the worst pub where I was living, but he liked the name, and he suggested that we went there for a drink. So it was really easy for me, really convenient, and he'd done all the work. He picked the time, the place, so all I had to do was turn up. That's what he did. It was really good.
But what about when it's not just about divorce and online dating, but what about if you have been in a relationship for a long time and you are going through the menopause and your confidence has dipped? It can be hard to really connect with your partner and stay connected and not let the relationship take second place. So have you got any advice for women to kind of how they can stay connected to their partner and still enjoy that relationship without it wavering?
Sex. Sex is absolutely the best way that you can stay connected during the menopause, but obviously it's one of the areas of your life that the menopause affects. So if you've one thing that can happen with our hormones is it's not just about your estrogen, it's about your testosterone. And when they were doing my HRT after the hysterectomy, so I have no ovary, I'm not producing very much of anything. And so they were kind of really trying to help me perfectly start from scratch almost with the hormones. And it got to the stage when I felt good in myself, but when it came to the bedroom, there was just nothing there. Like A, I didn't really want to, and B, when we did, for me, there was just no response and no kind of final moment. It had all gone. So the thing that they added for me was testosterone, and that was like a game changer in terms of energy, confidence, motivation, and sex is brilliant. So I would say if you've noticed that you've gone off sex, I wouldn't leap to the idea that it's your relationship that's in trouble, or living with this man for 20 years you finally realize what an idiot he is, and you don't want to sleep with him anymore. There's quite a high chance that it's just your response has gone. And when it goes, there is nothing. I mean, you could watch Colin Firth coming out of the lake in Pride and Prejudice 20 times and feel nothing. I mean, it's dead. So if you've really noticed that, I would probably say go and talk to your GP straight away, because the sometimes it's hard for women to get testosterone as part of their HRT, but the one thing it is licensed for is low sexual response in women. So it's going to be one of those times where you just come clean to your GP and go, below my waist, nothing, dead, Antarctica. Is there anything I can try?
It's so important we have these conversations, because I went to an event just before Christmas and somebody was on stage talking about the fact that basically that they'd written off having sex ever again with a partner. And there was a group of women that were saying, actually, do you know what? I'm happy with that. I'm done. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm over it. That's one of the beauties of getting older. And I was sat there thinking, no, you can't stop having sex. It's meant to get better as you get older after this part of life.
Yeah. I mean, you've spent 20 years like training them of everything that you really love. It would be awful to sort of lose all that work that you put in. But also, I think if I'm not having sex with my husband, he's a wonderful person, but just like a really annoying flatmate. if we're not having sex together, the little things that irritate me in our relationship just escalate like you wouldn't believe. And it's so noticeable. The morning after we've had one of our evenings, we come down in the morning and we're just so lovely to each other again. Kind of like, oh, sorry, I'm in your way, or shall I get the milk out for your tea, darling? Or thank you so much for doing the dishwasher. Whereas the morning before, it would be like, oh, can't you just have a coffee like I do? It's so much easier. Or, oh, yeah, mind the cat. Oh, that might just be me. Do you find that, or is it just me?
And I guess thinking of sex, I think one of the scary things for online dating when perhaps you've been in a relationship for, 20 years and then you've got to start again,
Mm,
is that thought of the intimacy that you've got
mm.
to then grow and build with somebody. That can be really scary, can't it? How do women get past that? Because that might be a real barrier to stop them even looking in the first place.
It's just the thought of getting naked again. I mean, that's why I was secretly on that diet before I met Pete, because he looked really handsome in his profile photos, and I thought I'm gonna have to. I could do a little bit better with this. Started going to the gym and eating really healthily. But what I actually found, I mean, I've written a book called Not Tonight, Mr. Right, which is actually about why dating is easier when you don't have sex at the beginning. So I always think that in a long-term relationship, in a long-term committed relationship, have as much sex as you can. Morning, noon, night. It's brilliant. It will keep you together. The oxytocin, it's wonderful. But when you start dating, I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't rush to do that anyway until you've really got to know each other. Because one of the things about oxytocin when we have sex, women release up to 8 times as much oxytocin as men do when they have sex. And it makes you trust the person. It makes you much more bonded to them emotionally. And it can take a long time to wear off. And it's interesting when you look back through your old relationships, it's never the men that you didn't have sex with that really got to you and you cried over. You were really, you were the girl sobbing in the loos at the pub. That wouldn't have been with a man that you didn't have sex with. This does change though over 40, because one of the things that happens with men and oxytocin is their testosterone can neutralize those bonding effects. And obviously over 30 and especially over 40, men's testosterone declines. So they do start getting more bonded emotionally, but at the same time, it is still not as much as women. So I would say, if you're really nervous and worried about dating, about having sex when you're dating, is feel free just to put it off, for a month or something, until you've built up the confidence and trust in your relationship without the sex. And then when you're getting undressed, you feel it's not so much like, I hope you like this, but I don't know. It's more like, and this is me. The me that you seem to really like. This is just more of her. You know what I mean?
And
Mm.
we've talked a lot about the menopause and how it can be a really difficult time, but you talk a lot about how positive dating later in life can be and how it
I
can
love
really improve this period of life, can't it?
it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, there was a bit of research years and years ago that I've never forgotten, which is the more you talk about yourself to people you don't know very well, the the more highly you think of yourself, if you know what I mean. So the more you're going out walking around the museums with new people, and they say sort of, how's your day, or do you like your job, or what do you do at weekends, you're not gonna spill the negative things like you would with one of your girlfriends, like, my life is in free fall, I'm chaotic with money, and I really just don't like my thighs. You're not going to say that. You're going to find something positive and say that to someone else. And actually, that small talk is really good for your brain. It makes you think, actually, yeah, things are all right. And so, just from small interactions like that, making you feel better about yourself, just to the positivity and optimism, dating can be, I mean, spectacular. Even if it takes you a while to find the person, I really want people to remember that it's not all about finding the one. It's honestly about enjoying the process of getting to know people, of changing who you are, of having your date outfits, rearranging the furniture in your house so it's not how it was when your old partner was there. That was more about you. It's having someone around for dinner. It's rediscovering you, and then rediscovering you as a new partner with a new person.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think particularly with Valentine's, the message really is about putting yourself first. And with that, what better way to do it than to put yourself in that situation, take yourself out of your comfort zone, but enjoy that whole process because it can be really exciting. Talking of kind of dating online, so, I met my husband through Match, but I know you're an ambassador and you work a lot with Our Time, and that's a specific dating site for women and men over 50, isn't it? Would
Yeah.
you recommend sticking to that kind of arena rather than being on something like Match? Is there a big difference?
I guess the one thing that when you join a site like Our Time, that the people on there are happy to meet people in your age group. And I think sometimes, especially as women, we can sometimes prejudge other people. That's not a very good way of saying it. We can assume what other people want. So might say, well, I'm 50 now, literally, therefore no man wants to go out with a 50-year-old woman. That's it. That's definitely finished. I know that as a fact, because it's your own worries, your limiting beliefs coming out. So when you join a site that men have paid money to join to meet women over 50, I mean, it does give you more confidence that actually, the people talking to me, they know that I'm over 50. They know that I've got grown up kids. They know that I'm thinking of retiring. They know all these things, and they're still interested in me. I think that's a good way of getting over the little beliefs that you've had in your head for a while, which I certainly had. I thought at 40, that was it. And because I knew as well, sort of the mixed blessing of knowing a lot of dating research, as the I knew, for example, that having red hair was the least popular hair colour a woman can have, and that less than 5% of the male population said that that was their favourite hair colour on a woman. And so I was thinking, great. So I'm 40, redhead. I mean, there's going to be nothing. But as soon as I tried it, I had so many responses.
Yeah. No, I remember sitting in my divorce lawyer's office when I was just finishing all the paperwork, and he did say to me, Rachel, do not worry about life in the future, because statistically, I think within 2 years you will have met your next partner, which I thought was really interesting, and I did leave the office feeling a lot more optimistic.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need a little nugget like that, because I think we can often, like magpies, just collect those bad. What was the thing? A woman over 40 is more likely to be killed in a terrorist explosion than actually get married again. And I think we all heard that on Sex and the City, and that became like a fact. I mean, it's not even true. Yeah, anything that lifts your spirits up enough, because then the process of doing online dating can be really positive, because you have to get at least 3 nice photos of you, which I probably recommend you have 3 new photos taken. So you could do that, with one of your friends, and you dress up. That'd be such a fun girls' night in, to put some dresses on and have some photos taken. The 2 of you, it's like getting ready when you're teenagers. That kind of thing makes you feel better. Just using the sites, because you don't have to pay to join the sites. You can just sign up and just see how many single men are in your town, and all of a sudden, oh, I had no idea. And then the messages start coming in, and then eventually, you get to go to a first date, and then you don't have sex because I won't let you, but you do get to go out to this museum. It's all like little happy steps back towards happiness, really.
Is there any statistics on kind of percentage of success rates on dating online?
I think I read something the other day that said by 2035, more people will have met online than not met online in any kind of dating or long-term relationship. Obviously, that's not just online dating. That's literally, we met in a chat room, or we met on Facebook, something like that. But when I first started doing online dating back in the 90s, there was so much stigma around it, mainly because there were very few women doing it, and the men that were doing it usually worked in IT, because they're the people that had set the internet up on their company's in their company, and they were the ones who were doing it. So you used to spend quite a lot of time on those first dates saying, how are we going to tell people that we meet, and sort of trying to make up a little story about it to tell everyone else.
Yeah, no, I know loads of my friends that have met their new partners and got married and had an amazing time afterwards, just on being online. And I love that we're
Yeah.
talking about it now, and there isn't a stigma attached to it. So much to talk about, Kate. Thank you so much. My last two questions that I ask all my guests, because I'm really trying to encourage women to accept compliments, because lots of women find it really difficult to compliment themselves. So if you were to pay yourself a compliment, what would it be?
I'm resilient. I bounce back from things. I think it must be quite hard being married to me. No, I'm meant to be doing positive things, aren't I? But my moods are like this. So, but it's I stayed. I never stayed down for very long, and I've got through a lot of things in my life, and I'm proud that I'm resilient.
Fabulous. Thank you. How can people find you? Because I know you do a lot of work online. Your website, if anyone hasn't already, go and check it out, because there's so much information and resources on there. So many fabulous blogs. I went down a real rabbit hole of reading stuff recently. So how can people find you?
It's lovekatetaylor.com.
Amazing. And my last question, what does liberty free to be mean to you?
Loving myself through my own eyes and not through anyone else's.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kate. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for sharing some great advice and tips. And if you haven't already and you're thinking about it and you are interested in getting out there and dating online, go for it. What have you got to lose? Take Kate's advice, and I'll be back in a fortnight. Keep being fabulous.